Hi, welcome back to the new Yachtsman. Today I thought I'd do a short video on tying up the boat, electrical service, and water service. There's many different opinions on how some of these things are done. The electrical is pretty simple. So generally on boats of this size, we're either going to have 1 or 2 50-amp cords, depending on how much load we have on the boat. My New England customers, Great Lakes customers find that 150-amp service is fine most of the time because they don't need AC a lot on the boat. Here in Florida, we typically will run 2 50-amp cords, and the way most of the Marlowe Explorers are set up in this mid-range is 1 50-amp cord would be for the air conditioning, and another one would be for everything else, all of the house side. When you're storing a boat, it's quite a bit different than when you're living on it. So you might be able to get away with a 50-amp cord running everything on the boat when you're not living on it. But as soon as you try to run a dryer at the same time the air conditioning is working hard, or you try to run the hot water heater kicks on, or the oven kicks on when you're running heavy air conditioning, it'll push you from 2 cords to 1 cord. So it just depends on how it's set up and what your loads are. But generally here in Florida, high AC loads, you're going to run 2 cords, and places where you don't need a lot of air conditioning, you're going to run 1 cord. Let's talk a little bit about dock lines and how we're tied up. There's a lot of debate, especially with dock masters, about whether the loop should be on the boat or the loop should be on the dock. Now, if you have a great dock master that knows what he's doing, hand him the line and put the loop end on the boat, and he will secure it on the cleat and leave most of the line on the dock. David Marlowe taught me years ago that he really prefers to have the loop at the dock so that if you get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and realize you need to tighten a line, now I don't have to get off the boat. Let's say the wind's kicked up, you realize that you need to secure the boat better. When this line is on the dock and I have control of the length of this line from the boat, I don't have to leave the boat to adjust my lines. So that is the safer scenario. The other thing I found is that when I put the loop on the boat and I throw the dock line to the 19-year-old kid who's never seen a motor yacht before, they will sometimes do something you don't want. Maybe they will pull you into the dock very hard. Maybe they will leave the spring line shorter than you want so that you don't end up where you want to be. So I generally prefer to have the loop on the dock instead of the loop on the boat. Let's look at what we do with the rest of the line, because the line is never the exact length. So you always have a bunch left over. So what do you do with it? Come on aboard and I'll show you that. All right, as I mentioned, I have the loop on the dock, and the rest of the line is here at the cleat and on the deck. This right here we call a Flemish coil, and it's not just meant to look pretty. The safest way to store this line when you have a lot of extra line is to have it flat where I can step on this and it won't get wrapped around my foot or anything. When this is wet, it's exposed to the air very well instead of being a ball, and it's going to dry quickly and it's safer. I could also choose to just put more of it around the cleat. I don't love that because when I go to get underway, I have more to do. Whereas if I just have this Flemish coil on the deck and a normal cleat like I have here, it's very quick for me to get rid of this cleated line. All right, let's talk about fresh water on the boat a little bit. When you go to a marina and you see the liveaboard that never moves, you'll see a water hose quite often permanently hooked to the boat. And what they're doing there is they're bypassing the water tank and they're bypassing the water pump that's on the boat, and they're using the dock water from the city marina to supply water to the entire boat. That's attractive because you never run out of water. There's 2 things I don't like about it though. Should something spring a leak, and I've seen it happen twice in 20 years, it will leak forever because there's an unlimited supply of water. So I would prefer that you fill your water tank every few days and cycle the water that's in the tank. When you permanently hook up dock water, the water that is in your boat gets old and stagnant and nasty. It's much better to use the water on the boat all the time and keep putting fresh chlorinated water from the street into that tank. Most of you will find that you probably have 3 to 5 days at least of capacity in the boat if there's 2 of you on the boat. And never, never leave a water hose connected with the pressure on all the time. It's just very dangerous, and it could potentially even sink a boat. A exploded water line with an unlimited supply of water could actually put more water on the boat than the bilge pump can take out. Also, I find that people tend to leave the hose out in the sun here in Florida, and if that coiled up hose is sitting in 90-degree weather exposed to the sun, it'll actually grow algae and stuff inside the hose. So be careful that the hose you use to fill this water tank is also a pure hose. I like to keep a separate white drinking water hose just for filling the tank, and don't leave it out on the dock all the time. Another thing let's talk about is the sewage system on the boat. So most of you have a boat that'll hold black water for at least a week, maybe 2. And there are provisions to pump overboard, but you only do that when you're offshore. Most marinas will have a service that comes by once a week on a schedule for each dock, and they will pump out your black water tank. And that fitting is generally on the deck. Let me show you where. Okay, so when the marina people come to pump out every week, you need to close the through-hull fitting that's for the overboard discharge. And the reason for that is the vacuum system that cleans out this tank pulls very hard and very fast. It has to, because it's pulling uphill, probably 8-9 feet in this case. And should the other valve be open to pump overboard, you're actually trying to create a vacuum in the tank, and you could try to pull seawater back through the tank that's the overboard discharge, and that'll ruin the diaphragm in the pump. I've seen quite a few people wipe out the black water overboard discharge pump by having a marina pump out without closing that through-hull fitting. If you're around, I always like to wet the teak, if you have a teak deck, before I fuel and before I do anything with black water. If you're fishing, basically wet teak is very easy to clean. Dry teak that's been stained with poo water or dyed diesel fuel or fish blood is very difficult to get clean again. So whenever you're dealing with a teak deck and you're doing something, try to just get it wet with fresh or salt water, it doesn't matter. And then if you spill a little bit, you can rinse it right off. And while we're here, we'll talk about fueling. I have a fuel fill on each side, and I would fuel from here. So I would put a pad on the rail and have the hose come in, and we would fuel right here. Most of the Marlows are set up so that even if it has 2 tanks and not 1, there's a crossover, so you're filling from the other side. You generally don't need to top off the tank totally, maybe once or twice a year if you're going on a really long trip. But you'll find that the boats run better if they're not completely full and heavy. If you're only going a few hundred miles today, there's no reason to have 1,500 gallons of fuel on this boat. It just slows you down. So I'd rather have you buy fuel every 3 or 4 days than fill up for a week-long trip. Same thing with water. You don't need 250 gallons to go from here to Marco Island. If you're only going to be at sea for 1 or 2 days, 150 gallons is all you need. And carrying that extra 500 gallons of fuel and extra 100 gallons of water in this boat would translate to, a knot at cruise speed. Now, when you're going slow, you don't see the difference. But as soon as you want to cruise at 17 plus knots, weight matters a lot. I hope these little tips help. Please like and subscribe if you find this interesting. And I'd love to get more feedback from you all on other topics you'd like discussed. Thank you.